subscribe next episode with Ziv Rafalovic. Yes, and we're gonna share an experience remotely. You'll be speaking at Tech in North America.
Yep.
What's the topic of the talk again?
Messaging with Service Bus.
Yes, and I should know that because I'm going to do this exact same talk at Tech at Europe.
Madrid, I believe.
Madrid, yes. Where's Tech at North America this year?
You got me. I don't know. I'm going to find out soon.
Well, you'll find out soon enough.
Yep.
So if you are interested in seeing us in person, the great thing about going to conferences is to see the people in person and to actually shake their hands and say hello.
Yep.
And if you have suggestions for the product, we'll love to hear them. So if you want to go to TechEd, you can certainly go and sign up. I still don't think the show is sold out yet. So here's a link how you can get and find TechEd. That all said, we have a physical machine here because we will talk about the thing we have for physical machines, and that is the server.
Yep.
And we built, we released it not with too much fanfare in October last year.
Yep.
And we did that because Office 365 or Office, the next version.
SharePoint 2013, yeah. Basically, we released it with only one customer. Big one, but one customer only. And ever since, we've seen kind of a very nice growth in terms of the adoption for this release, the Service Bus on-prem.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I'm here to talk about.
Yes. So we took the messaging engine that we have in the cloud, and then we moved that onto a server, and there was a lot of stuff that we had to do kind of to make that happen.
Yep. So as you mentioned, we've just taken the broker messaging. We didn't take relay. So the basic queues and topics, all the functionalities which is available in SDK 1.8 basically is available on-prem. And then we had to put the platform, setup, deployment, configuration, some management. We had to add a management pack for System Center. And we ended up with Service Bus runtime components which run on a laptop.
Yes. So Service Bus is somewhat different from MSMQ, obviously. So we now have two messaging components that you can get with Windows.
Yep.
The license for the Service Bus 1.0 for Windows Server is included in Windows Server.
Correct.
And that's the supported configuration also for production.
So for production purposes, we require users to have Windows Server starting 2008 R2, SP1 and above, Server 12, as well as SQL 2008 R2, SP1 and above. But for DevBox, for dev environment, you can install it on Client OS, Windows 7 SP1, Windows 8, 64 bits for evaluation, development purposes. And unlike other Azure technologies, which comes with an emulator, we are not bringing an emulator, we are bringing the full-blown product where you can play with it just like in the cloud.
So what you get is let's start with the single machine. So you can start, we require the SQL engine primarily. We require that as a storage engine, and that has a number of advantages because we don't need to write directly to the file system. You can use whatever mechanisms you're familiar with for backing things up and recovery, etc. So it gives us a transactional engine, if you will. And but it's not required that you use the server version of SQL, the full-blown standard server version.
Correct.
Express is sufficient.
Express is sufficient. Express doesn't give you the same capabilities in terms of hardware resources as well as the backup and always on, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot set up highly available SQL with SQL Express. So again, if you're looking into production environments, you'll have to make your SQL highly available. We won't do it for you.
Yes. So, but I can, if I have a Windows Server standard, which is requirement to be licensed and supported, I could run that arguably on SQL Express.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I don't have to, but if I want to have more availability, then I'm going to do that. So since I was talking about MSNQ, so MSNQ is a peer-to-peer queue, and Service Bus is not a peer-to-peer queue, but it's a broker model. So we've been kind of moved from a peer-to-peer, sits on every machine model to one where you have a central broker, but that's a broker that you can install and the price. Did I say free?
Well, we call it no extra cost.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's priced with Windows Server.
Correct.
And then we have this exception kind of where the DevBox scenario is okay, you can use it, but there's no official support for it.
Yep.
So you can't call us if anything goes wrong. That's kind of what the licensing terms are. You ought to have that on Windows Server. Now the interesting thing that we kind of brought from the cloud that we have not had in any other messaging technology, and it's kind of fairly unique actually to a 1.0 product, is that we have clustering built in.
Yep.
And so walk me through what the rule. So there's storage in the database, and what does that server do? Because you ideally install the SQL separate, and then you install the broker or the runtime. What does that do?
So the server, in a way, we support a cluster of 3 nodes. We require 3 nodes for availability. Again, as you mentioned, we brought the cloud perception, so we require quorum to run our ring or our cluster. And each database, in a way, is served by one of those nodes. So if one node goes down, automatically some node from the others available nodes will pick up all the load, all the database connectivities, and continue serving clients.
So the broker per se, so when I send a message into Service Bus, it goes into, and I set up the full-blown install with DNS and all those. I mean, we have this guide for how to go and set things up completely. So I come into the broker and I land on one of the machines, and I want to drop a message. There's a piece inside the system that kind of stamps the sequence numbers.
Yeah. So basically, when you hit Service Bus, you hit one of our gateways. So like in the cloud, we have the gateway and the backend. Unlike the cloud, we have both running on the same nodes.
Folded on the same thing.
Yes, so all the nodes are identical in that sense. So you hit any of the gateways. By the way, if you come from DNS or any virtual IP, that's okay. If you don't have virtual IP, that's okay as well. And in fact, what we do is our clients support a connection string, which has multiple FQDNs. So we don't require DNS. Okay?
So you can, if you have 5 machines, you can make a connection string and just tell it all the 5 machines.
So officially we support 3 in this release, but you may try more. But basically, yes, you give the connection string, and our client will do the failover.
So you're saying there's no limit. There's no actual limit to 3.
No, but this release was tested on a 3 nodes cluster.
So the support people will say, well, that's your own fault.
Something like that, yes. Don't get me wrong, with a 3 nodes machine, we were able to get to 1,500 queues, each sending and receiving 1K message a second. So it's kind of a scale out if you want to have several hundreds queues.
And so, but the point I was trying to make is if I have this broker which runs on that one machine, and that's kind of stamping the messages as they come in. If that machine goes away, that automatically gets balanced across the other guys.
Yes.
And so if you say the volatile state, effectively, the sequence number for a particular queue, and anything that has to do with this being a single thing, the authority for that queue, all of that is replicated through that ring.
And we do the failover as well. So
if
a queue resides in a queue or a topic resides in a single database, okay, all messages from one queue today reside in one database. When the broker serving this database is down, immediately the next call or the following retry will hit another broker, which will continue with the same sequence for that broker serving that. So that's the dynamic state we replicate, and we play the failover game with this. It's very important. I mentioned the scale out of multiple topics. So unlike the cloud, the admin, you will have to create your own databases. In other words, when you provision a service bus farm, we will provision one container for you, and then later, if you need multiple queues, even starting tens, create more containers. So we support multiple containers, just more messaging databases.
The more spindles you can have,
yes,
the better it is.
Yes.
So
yes.
It's a scale up. It's a scale up model in multiple dimensions. First of all, we can go across brokers.
Correct.
And we have tested to 3 because that was the SharePoint requirement effectively in the end. Because the reason why you have the server is because SharePoint kind of said you got to ship it this day. And that's the reality of the world.
That's life. Yep.
And so we tested to that extent. You can go bigger if you want to. So you get that scale out in that dimension. And then you get scale out also in the storage dimension.
Correct.
Because you can add databases, and you can add databases at arbitrary locations. So you can actually make machines with spindles, and you just add them to as message containers, and they can be handled by that one broker.
Yes, exactly.
And in the cloud, we run against thousands of databases.
Well, there are two fundamental problems with the cloud. One is that
there are no problems with the cloud.
Sorry. Yeah. Two well-known features of SQL in the cloud. One of them is the fact that there is a limit size for each SQL. I think it's 150 GB. In case of server, you can just scale up and create using a beefier SQL instances. And even SQL has by default the auto growth, so you don't even need to specify.
But you're still constrained by throughput through physical.
Yes.
Physical
so that's one difference. And the other is that even with a given SQL server, basically you manage the SQL server. So you can specify a single SQL server with a lot of memory for your production environments, and then specify another one with cheap storage, no HA for additional, and just deploy an additional farm for testing. So unlike the cloud where all service bus queues and topics basically use the same hardware in a way, when it comes to on-prem, you can specify a dev box, a testing farm, and a production farm. So that's basically changed everything.
So all of your, and then we have some knobs you can turn, like message size you can go and make bigger than it is in the cloud.
Yes, message size, again, we don't have the features of the cloud. So message size is 5 MB, and there is even one knob where you can get to 50 MB per message. Again, it's all SQL at the back end, so it's okay.
So before we get into, because we're going to go and install the server, so you actually go and see that in motion. Before we talk about that, there's let me talk about MSMQ and service bus kind of relationship briefly, because that matters to a lot of people who are building solutions. The way we're thinking about, so we own both. Our team owns, I talked to Rupert earlier, and I think I'm going to publish that episode beforehand, about high availability, but Rupert also owns MSMQ. We actually made a little German thing also, and so then we admitted it that he's owning MSMQ. So we own both technologies. There's an important role that MSMQ plays in this whole game, because it is kind of a bridgehead for some techniques that you're commonly using on premises. For instance, if you need to have distributed transactions where you have, you do a SQL operation here, and then you want to go in NQ, and you want to use the distributed transaction coordinator to kind of wrap around this. You can't do this with the service bus per se. So service bus, the broker, doesn't support distributed transactions, and it doesn't support that because of the availability and scale-out bias that we have in the system. So our goal is to be highly available, and the goal is to be highly scalable, and that is kind of contradicted by the whole notion of DTC. However, the way you can do this is you can make a local MSMQ queue, and then you can go and roll that into a transaction. You can write into MSMQ, and then you can go and replicate out from that MSMQ queue through a little pump that you can write over into service bus. So with that, so once you have that little pump, and we have samples for that, actually on the code gallery, MSN code gallery. If you do this, you can actually now take any MSMQ enabled app, and go and replicate basically from the MSMQ queue into a service bus queue,
Either cloud or on-prem, by the way.
either cloud or on-prem, and then also replicate from there then to another MSMQ queue.
Yeah.
So you can take existing MSMQ queues and now enable them with PubSub capabilities in that way.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing you have to think about is, what do you do with your payload? So if you are using MSMQ today with, let's say, classic COM, the pump needs to account for this and needs to go and take the payloads and take them as it is and move them into the queues.
But you mentioned the need for transactions. Another common scenario is basically store and forward. Applications where you need ongoing connectivity, and if you are sending messages to service bus in the cloud or even server, you need the option always to be able to send messages.
Yes.
So the store and forward using local MSMQ and then somehow forward it to service bus, again, either on-prem or in the cloud, is a very common pattern we keep recommending customers who needs these always-on capabilities and cannot just rely on cloud connectivity.
And for that, we have actually a reasonable two-step model now, where if you are on the client, you use MSMQ because it's in the box. So you can go and send to that and you can replicate out. And then you can replicate out to a local service bus server, which is fail-safe. And if you have any risk of losing connectivity between that and the cloud, then that will hold the data, and then you can have a pump out there.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have some more. Let's start to proceed in here now. But I think we'll have some guidance and more samples around those scenarios in the future, and we're also going to build that obviously straight into the product. So what we're going to do now, after talking about the thing, from an API perspective, it's mostly the same. The connection strings are different, but otherwise everything you know about Service Bus messaging, the Microsoft Service Bus messaging namespace, all of that is true, with exception of the connection string. So that's not as grandly exciting.
So it's a huge achievement for the team. You need to understand that today we know of, I think there are 2 bugs which are different behavior when it comes to SDK 1.8. And this in a way just brings to mind the cadence, the fact that I think we are the only one who actually developed cloud first and release new features to the cloud every quarter or so. And when those are mature enough, we bring those to server, where we hope to release at least once a year. And
now we're going to go install the server on this wonderful notebook.
Yep.
Windows 8, 64-bit.
Windows 8, 64 bits with a SQL 2012 Express edition.
So that's the only thing we have installed beforehand, SQL Server Express, because that's on the machine anyway. So, okay, so let's go do the motions. What do we do first?
So first step will be to get actual bits, and this is done using the web platform installer, WebPI.
So WebPI is already also installed?
WebPI installed, sorry guys.
But you can get that at microsoft.com/web.
Yep.
Very easily. So in there,
I search for bus to find Service Bus 1.0.
Okay.
And later on we will talk about the CU one. And I just ask to install it. And I accept. And it's there. So
what we did now is we
just got the bits. And
how big are the bits?
I think 10 MB.
So it's very lightweight.
Yep. And what we got with it is we got the Service Bus PowerShell extension and the Service Bus configuration wizard.
Okay.
So the next step is actually go and configure the Service Bus farm. And as I mentioned, there are 2 ways. One is using the PowerShell, and the other is use the config wizard.
Are we going to use the UI?
I will use the UI.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's safer. And that's the UI. So it's pretty straightforward. There are 2 ways to create a farm. And the way you deploy a Service Bus farm is you go to the first node, you create a farm, and then you join the farm from the second and third nodes.
So a farm is a cluster.
A cluster, a ring, a cloud, you name it. Yeah.
Okay, good. So that's our concept there.
Yes.
So create a new farm so if you create a single machine install, you create a farm with 1 node.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'll take just the default settings because those just work for dev environment, DevBox. First, I need to validate the connection, the SQL connection to my SQL server.
Okay.
That's a local SQL Express. specify the service account which the service bus services will run with the credentials. And here, I'm sorry, I need to now I need to change my password. And specify a certificate generation key. So service bus uses certificate for encrypting passwords and HTTPS. There are two ways. One is to use bring your own certificate if you have your corporate certificate, and then instead of just this is supported in the custom wizard. But in case of a DevBox, this wizard will just create a certificate for which I need to specify the generation key. So my favorite password is there twice, and I hit next.
Next is that funky button at the corner.
Yes. And basically these are the settings which will be used. And behind the scenes, this config wizard will just create a PowerShell script, which I can look by clicking here and get the PowerShell script to use later on if I need to schedule it later on, for example.
So that's that PowerShell script is the complete script to set this up.
Yes.
So that's what this does, and then it creates a PowerShell script. That's what the wizard does, and it
and launch
executes
it. Yes.
Okay.
Now, as part of this wizard, we will create a farm with all the settings, add this node to the farm, so it's a one node farm, create a database container, one messaging database for messaging, and create a default service bus namespace. Okay. As we mentioned earlier, we just delivered the runtime components, so the portal is not available. The Azure portal is not available in this release for server. And one of the alternatives, by the way, is to use the Service Bus Explorer, which I believe you will cover in one of your upcoming sessions.
Paolo Salvatori built that one. Yes.
Okay, looking forward, Paolo. Basically, all the management commands are supported with the PowerShells. Okay,
so knowing PowerShell, knowing the basics of PowerShell is helpful.
Yep.
To go into, so you can create new namespaces. You can create. Can you create entities using PowerShell?
No.
No. So
no.
you
will have to use Paolo's tool or the API.
Or the API.
And let me just, in the meantime, just open the Service Bus PowerShell. This is still working.
So we're shipping with the server this PowerShell environment here.
Yep.
Okay.
And actually, I believe I can. One of the first commands to run is the get SB farm, and it returns all the farm settings. And what I can do is actually very useful commandlet is get SB farm status. Sorry. Get SB farm status, which basically go and query the state of all the service bus services in all the nodes. So if you have a 3 nodes farm, this is a very efficient way to get whether you have an issue with the farm or not. Once the wizard will be done, we will talk about how to get the connection string. I believe we're there. So one of the other PowerShells, and what I'm showing as a get, you have, for most of them, you have a set as well. So then I do get SB namespace, and I get the list of all the service bus namespaces. As you can see, the wizard created a service bus default namespace. We support 2 schemas for addressing. One is path-based, basically using the machine FQDN, and the other is a DNS. So you can go and register a service bus namespace in your DNS, providing this DNS entry for your clients to use.
So I can do the familiar thing from the cloud. Clemens. So if I was setting up a service bus, I would call this servicebus@vastors.com.
Yes.
I could either do a Clemens.servicebus@vastors.com and make the Clemens the namespace, or I could make a servicebus@vastors.com/Clemens.
Yep.
And make the first segment kind of the distinction of my namespace.
Correct.
All right.
Now the last step is basically how to get the connection string, and from there on, basically it's all this pretty much similar to the cloud. So the get SB, client configuration will return a connection string. So
Okay.
Basically, we return a connection string for each namespace. So if you have multiple namespaces, you will get multiple connection strings here, unless you specify the namespace name.
Okay.
Okay. And basically, you take this connection string and you paste it to your config file, and all these samples, which by the way were refreshed just recently to use connection strings, will work same way they work for the cloud.
So if I'm not familiar with Service Bus in the cloud per se, the namespace concept maps fairly straightforward to the same scoping that I get out of an IS site or a SQL Server database.
Correct.
So I have stuff inside of there. So whenever I would create a site or whenever I would create a database and I need that kind of scoping, then I would create a Service Bus namespace.
Yeah.
Here.
Namespace in a way is the way to isolate your entities, and by isolate both in terms of addressing as well as authentication and authorization.
So I talked to Santosh about security, and so we briefly were talking about the security model here. So the server differs in security somewhat because it has a built-in little STS.
Correct. Yes. And for this release, basically, we have two ways to authenticate users. One is using Windows integrated authentication, and the other is basically using tokens. So you can see that this namespace has a manage users. I'm sorry for this naming, but basically, I am an owner for everything in this namespace. I can create entities, delete entities, send, receive, and so on. I can add you, for example, to this namespace by using the set_sb namespace and specify a name and manage users, like a set of users, comma separated list.
And so since this is all domain joined,
yep, you can specify a domain, a group, a user group, and manage your users from there.
So it is completely integrated with the Windows security system.
Yes.
But then I can also use keys.
You can use key, for a namespace. And since you mentioned your session with Santosh, so next release we will have the same SaaS capabilities.
So that's a shared
access secret.
Yes,
will be available in our next release 4.7. One of the features available only in the SDK today is the ability to specify users' claims per entity, per queue or a topic or subscription. That's available in SDK 1.8, supported in server v1 already. Okay. So I can specify, while I'm the owner, I can grant you send claims to just one of my topics. And that's only supported in the using the SDK. In the entity description, being a queue description or topics description, there is authorization rules, and you can add it from there. Sample is available in MSDN.
Cool. So what we did now is that's it, right?
That's it. Yeah, we have a running have a running farm, and I can actually do a nice trick here and use Paolo's tool.
Just bring that up quickly.
Yeah, so I just copy this to the clipboard, and I open Paolo's tool, and
So that's the Service Bus Explorer.
That's the Service Bus Explorer, and I just indicate here that I am looking to do Service Bus for Windows Server connection string, and I just paste my connection string.
Okay.
And I'm done.
Magic.
And
there's nothing in there?
Do nothing. I would just created this farm, my queue, and create it. And just to show you that it actually was created, what I can do is I can do get SB message containers and ask to show all entities. Okay, that's the commandlet. And basically I see that I have one container. Again, highly recommended, once you provision the farm, create more containers, at least 3. So to have one container served by each of your backends. And then I see that in this first container, I have one entity. Namespace is this, entity type is a queue, and that's the queue name.
Cool.
Done deal.
Great.
Yep.
And then you can use the normal SDK to send.
SDK 1.8 supported with V1, send, receive, do everything. Forward to, dead letter queue, you name it.
And all included in the Windows Server license. Well, that is a wonderful thing. Thank you, Ziv. I think that was it's almost unspectacular in terms of how easy that whole installation experience is, and the PowerShell management is something that will have eventually will have graphical support and portal support and all
Portal
those
is,
things.
yeah, our goal is to bring, again, we mentioned this cadence, so the goal is to bring the portal experience on-prem as well.
Great. Thank you, sir. And
My pleasure.
thank you thank you to everybody who was listening. I'm off the screen these days right now, but bye bye.
Bon voyage, Clemens.